Welcome everyone to a dark tale where the stories get real dark real fast. So let's roll the intro. So welcome everyone to another episode of A Dark Tale. So if you can see the jersey I'm wearing now, it's a Brazil jersey. Because in light of the World Cup, right? So I thought in the theme of the World Cup, why not wear a World Cup jersey? But fun fact, this jersey is actually from 2014. So meaning that if I can still fit it means my size didn't grow. So it's good news lah, I hope. So anyway, thanks for all your feedback recently, and I've heard that you guys said I look very very tired, and of course because usually when I do this it's in the wee hours of the night. One thing is because everything is quiet, so there's no external noises, and the second thing is because I like to get myself in the mood of the stories. So like today we have 3 stories to share with you today, and the first story it's about almost something like black magic, and then you have the second and third story. So don't go away, hear every single story, and I want you guys to comment down below if you have your own experiences. So let's start the first story. So the first story goes something like this, and the title is called basically Black Liquid. I don't tell this story for fun, the writer said. I tell it because I still don't have an answer, and some part of me never will. We were in Thailand, me on a holiday, my parents on business, so separate hotels, same country. Nothing unusual, nothing that should have mattered. It was close to midnight when my phone lit up. My dad, and the second I heard his voice, something in my stomach dropped. Before he even said a word, he sounded like a man, trying very hard not to sound afraid and failing. Because you know, as guys or men, we try our best to mask our emotions. So same as the father here. So he picked up the phone, so when I picked up the phone, he said, Mom is sick, stomach pain, vomiting. He kept stopping mid-sentence, like he didn't know how to describe what he was seeing. I told myself, maybe it was the food, like, you know, a bad meal, and I'll see her in the morning and we'll laugh about it. But I did not laugh about it. The woman lying in that hotel bed the next day was not the woman I said goodnight to less than 12 hours earlier. Her skin had gone pale, a pale I have never seen on her before. Like something underneath her had drained, but overnight. She was curled in on herself, shaking, soaked through with sweat that had no business being that cold. When she spoke, her voice came out cracked and small, nothing like her. So when you are feeling sick, you know how you talk like, water, you know, something like that. She said it didn't feel like pain. She said it felt like something was inside her, using her stomach as something to hit over and over again from the inside. We didn't wait, or we didn't call the hospital. We just got her to the best private hospital we could find, and they took her straight into surgery. No time wasted and no questions asked. Just the look on their faces that told us this was serious in a way none of us wanted to name. The good news is the surgery worked. She lived. And that should be the end of it. But it wasn't. Afterwards, the surgeon came to us. He was calm, trained to be calm, but there was something underneath it, something careful in the way he chose his words. He told us that in all his years, he had never seen anything like what was inside her. When they opened her stomach, black liquid came out. Thick, slow, wrong, not blood, not bile, not anything with a medical name. He said it plainly, like just facts. He wasn't trying to fabricate it or anything. He didn't even want to believe it himself. All he said was, I don't know what this is. He didn't offer theories, he didn't speculate, he just let the silence do it for him. It was few days later, once she could speak properly again. That's when I finally asked her what happened before she got sick. What she done, what she said, anything that can point me in the right direction. She went quiet for a moment, then she told me the first thing she done walking into the hotel room was look at the bathroom, the basin, the toilet. You know how we go into hotels and we take a video, like a room tour. So same thing, she went in the hotel room, walked into the bathroom, see the basin, the toilet, and she said out loud, how disgusting. Wow, the place not nice. He didn't say this in the story lah, but I'm just adding it. So like, you know, you enter a room there like, oh wow, smelly this place, not nice. And that's exactly what the mum did. That night, she couldn't stop vomiting. By morning, something felt like it was punching her from inside. I'm not going to tell you what I think happened, because honestly, I don't fully know it myself. But I'll tell you what my mum believes and what I've come to believe too. Some rooms are listening, and some things do not like being insulted in their own house. So if you're ever somewhere unfamiliar, a hotel room, a rented room, anywhere that isn't yours, watch what you say and never comment. So that was our first story of tonight. Thanks again to the person that has been submitting over and over again. And what do you guys think about this black liquid that came out? Because even the doctors couldn't explain it. Personally, my opinion is, if I had to actually go through the story, it feels like more than just an entity. Because if let's say you offend something, most probably what I've heard is you have bad dreams or disturbances. But this took another level. It's as if like someone was not happy with her and did like black magic on her. It's so weird, but it felt a bit too extreme, because like the thing going inside her and then punching her from inside the body. I don't even know how to describe how that would feel. But this is the first story that I've heard in such a way that it went to extreme length. So again, guys, like what the writer has said, or the submission, the confessor, I would say, is watch what you say out loud. Because sometimes in some places and some beliefs, every single room or every single house or hotel room, there's always a guardian spirit, or what I would call a resident spirit, that is at your place. Even in your own house, there's a resident spirit. They just sit there and they don't disturb us. So the same thing, we don't disturb them. So especially when you go into different kind of places or new places, always be respectful of the place. Know that this is not your place and you are just technically hitchhiking. So you're renting the room. So be respectful, and if you can, don't say anything bad lah. And with that, we go on to our second story for tonight. Again, if you guys want to be part of the submission, head down to TikTok and write and search my channel name, A Dark Tale. Then go to the DMs and DM me the story there. As of this moment, I don't have an extra line or email for you guys to message. So go down to TikTok and then DM me your stories there. That's how your stories get told. So if you want your stories to get told, don't forget to submit your stories down below on TikTok so I can read it for you. So anyway, if you're hearing that, that's my cat. And sorry for the background noise, because I can't make the cat stop meowing. So now we move on to our second story of tonight, and this story it's also happening in Singapore, and I thought it was quite interesting. So today we are going to share this story with you guys. So let's play some background music and get into the second story of tonight. So this person says, "Hi, my name is Savi. The story I'm about to share is quite short, but to this day is something that I can completely not understand. This happened a while back, somewhere around the Bukit Merah area, especially inside a neighborhood park. I'm not entirely sure if there's more than one park there, so I won't provide further details on the exact location. But anyone familiar with the area will know what I'm talking about. And I think I know maybe." But of course, we're going to keep it private, okay? So to give you some background, I'm the kind of person who genuinely enjoys going to the cinema alone. I take it as my personal time to unwind, clear my head, and just have some proper me time. On that particular night, it was one of those days. I managed to catch the absolute last show time for the movie, and by the time the credits rolled out and I left the cinema, it was incredibly late. The streets were dead quiet. Instead of waiting for a night bus, I decided to just walk all the way back home. I wasn't in a rush, and I figured it would be nice to just stroll along and enjoy the late night breeze. I started off walking along the main road, so from the mall, the person walked slowly all the way back home by the main road. But after a while, I decided to take a detour and cut right through the park instead. Now, for people who don't know the Bukit Merah estate, the trees here are massive. They are those old thick trees with like heavy trunks and tops that spread out incredibly wide. In the daytime, they are beautiful because they provide great shade and keep the whole place cool. But at night under the dim yellow streetlight, those same branches start to look deeply unsettling. So, to continue the story, as I was walking deeper into the pitch black park, so this one I'm guessing is quite long ago, because if I remember correctly, most of the parks now are pretty well lit. I spotted a public toilet about halfway through, and since it was proving to be quite a long journey back, I decided I should probably use it before continuing the rest of my walk. Right beside this concrete toilet block stood one of those massive trees. It looked intensely creepy. It was like many trees combined into one, those kind. But honestly, I've stayed in this area long enough to be used to it, so I didn't really let it bother me. So I just walked towards the entrance of the toilet. But as I stepped closer to the toilet, a sound cut through the silence. Someone was humming. It was a beautiful melodic tune, but at the same time, it sounded deeply solemn and mournful. So as he was before he was entering the toilet, he heard the humming, which probably sounded something like and instantly gave me goosebumps. I stopped and looked around trying to find where this sound was coming from. But the park where I was standing at was completely empty. Not even a single soul was inside. So, trying to shake off this uneasy feeling, I walked into the toilet. The moment I stepped inside, the humming started again. But this time, the acoustics changed. It didn't sound like it was coming from outside anymore. It felt like it was coming from directly above, echoing through the concrete walls of the toilet like it was playing out of a speaker. So when he was doing his business, he heard the humming sound coming from on top the toilet. Right then, a sudden terrifying realization hit me. What if it isn't human? Panic flared up in my chest. I quickly finished what I was doing, rushed over to the sink, washed my hands and everything, and practically broke into a fast walk to get out of the toilet. The exact moment I stepped back outside under the open sky, right above my head, I heard the violent rustling of tree branches. So naturally, when you're walking up and then you hear from on top, you probably look up first, right? So this is exactly what this person did as well. My reflex was naturally to look straight up, and to my absolute horror, perched on a thick branch directly above me, I saw it. It looked exactly like a silhouette of a monkey, but it was pitch black. It didn't have fur, features or eyes. It was as if it was a living thing, or what I can call it is a living, breathing shadow of a monkey, except there was no actual physical creature there to cast it. The moment our eyes, or rather the direction met, so when he was looking and basically probably the thing was looking back at him, the solemn humming stopped instantly. A heavy silence hung in the air for a fraction of a second, and then it let out a short, sinister chuckle. It wasn't an animal sound. It was like it was mocking me. It felt completely intentional, as if it was directly telling me, "I know you saw me." My heart was hammering against my ribs, but I knew I couldn't run. I forced myself to keep my cool. So after he saw the thing, he kept his cool, dropped my head, and just kept walking forward at a steady pace. And just to make sure I didn't hear anything, I reached into my pocket, grabbed my AirPods, shoved them into my ears, and switched on to noise cancellation mode to drown out the entire world. I didn't look back once. I just stared straight ahead and walked all the way back to the safety of my home. And that was the end of it. This might not be the absolute scariest paranormal encounter your channel has ever heard, but to this day, passing under those white Bukit Merah trees at night completely chills me to the bone. So that was the second story, if you guys heard. The second story of a park at Bukit Merah. And honestly, I've been to Bukit Merah. I don't think that's a lot of parks. So, I mean, maybe you guys can narrow it down to which park it is, but he never told me, so I myself don't know. But from guessing, I think I sort of know where this person is talking about. But wow, honestly, what do you guys think it was? Maybe like, because you can't say it's a Pontianak, you know, because Pontianak is like white, long hair, the usual, but this one it's like a monkey-shaped figure. So I'm guessing just perched there, sitting down there, maybe human-like. But the first thing that the writer told us is that probably because it was in a tree, he thought it was a monkey, but then it was just pitch black. So what do you guys think it was? I honestly have no idea, but what he said was true. Bukit Merah has one of those scariest trees, but in the daytime it's super shady, but at night it's a different feel lah. And actually, I have a couple Bukit Merah stories of my own if you guys want to hear it. So if you guys want to hear it, comment down below because I have Bukit Merah stories of my own. I don't have any submission as of now. And if you guys have your submission, send it down to me. Because I know Bukit Merah has a lot of old blocks. And maybe if I'm lucky, I can get a couple of ghost stories so I can do a part 1 and part 2 of that specific place. Or maybe just apartments in general. So now finally let's move on to our third story. Our third story of tonight. So let's get back into the mood of the third story. So this next story was sent in by a viewer who wants to remain anonymous. So for tonight, I will just call him like O. Okay, so we just call him like O, the alphabet O. O and his family were planning a short getaway to Malaysia. They wanted a quiet vacation by the beach, so they decided on mersing, knowing that places like Desaru usually get way too crowded over the holidays. To make getting around easier, they rented a car for the road trip. The group consisted of O, his parents, and his younger sister. They took the route, a very scenic route, enjoying the drive, and finally they arrived at the homestay they had booked on Airbnb. It was a landed property, and the price had been incredibly cheap because it was located slightly away from the main beach. So since it's further away, you need to drive, and it's not very convenient for people who don't have a vehicle. So I'm guessing that's the reason why it's cheap lah. So same for this person. Since they had a rental car, they figured it was a great way to save some cash. But at the moment they pull up to the house, the reality set in. O realized exactly why the place was heavily discounted. Now, it wasn't completely run down or falling apart, but it definitely wasn't the best looking house on the street. Inside, the furniture was old-fashioned, like old, heavy, like those wooden, dated furniture. It was a bit of a disappointment, but they reasoned out within themselves like, we'll be out most of the time, so why not let's not hassle ourselves and find a new place. We're going to sleep here, just sleep here anyway, right? So they brushed it off, and since it was a bit late, they unpacked their bags, and everyone thankfully had their own rooms. For the first day, they turned in early because it was already getting late. But the first night, O just couldn't sleep. The mattress was stiff and uncomfortable because he was old. He stayed awake scrolling through his phone until the time crawled to almost 2 a.m. And that's when the silence of the house was broken. It sounded like something heavy dropping hard onto the floor out in the main hall. So he just heard duk. Immediately after the impact, it was followed by an unsettling, low, raspy noise, like an animal hissing or growling in the dark. Like O went into an instant panic mode. Because growing up in Singapore, he had never experienced wild animals breaking into the house before. So he bolted straight up, quietly crept over to his bedroom, the door, and cracked it open just a tiny bit to peek out into the hallway. So he opened the door just to look what was outside without scaring the thing away lah. But when he looked out into the hallway, everything was completely dark. Everything was dead still. So he was a bit puzzled, and he opened the door fully and stepped outside to check. But nothing felt wrong. A bit creeped out, but thinking that it was nothing, he went back to his room, messed around on his phone for a bit, and eventually drifted off to sleep. The next morning, O chose not to mention it to his family. He didn't want to alarm them over what was probably just a random noise. But then again, the second night came. Once again, O found himself tossing and turning, unable to sleep, and just like clockwork, exactly at the same time, right around 2 a.m., the silence shuttered again, followed by immediately the same heavy growling sound from the hallway. So it felt like a thud sound, and then this time O got up even quieter, slipped to the door and checked outside. So he opened again and he checked. The hall again was completely empty. So he went back to bed. But what happened next made his blood run cold. He fell into a state of sleep paralysis, or maybe just like a super hyper realistic nightmare. He honestly couldn't even tell. His eyes snapped open, but his body was completely frozen, locked tightly to the mattress. He was lying down and his head was facing the bedroom door, which was slightly open at this point. Through the small gap, out in the dimly lit hall, he saw a figure standing there. It was an old, disheveled looking man staring straight through the gap of the door, pinning O down with his eyes. So when he was lying down, he couldn't move. He saw just this old man just looking at him. It felt like his eyes were holding O down. So the man's mouth was stretched wide open in a horrific shape, and his tongue was hanging abnormally long, stretching down so far it was almost touching his chest right above his neck. So the old man, his mouth was open and his tongue was hanging out all the way down until the bottom, touching the chest. And as O lay there paralyzed with fear, he realized the low growling sound wasn't coming from an animal at all. It was vibrating directly out of that old man's throat. O tried desperately to scream, to move, to fight it off, but he couldn't. Terrified, he squeezed his eyes shut and started praying anything that he could get out of his mind. When he finally forced his eyes back open, he shot straight up in bed, gasping for air. When he looked at his bedroom door, it was completely shut. The house was completely silent. O wasn't kidding when he said his balls were up to his throat at that exact moment. The next morning, O couldn't keep it to himself anymore. He casually just started to try to ask and start a convo with his family, like if they heard anything or felt anything weird during the night. His parents said no and just shrugged. But a few minutes later, his younger sister pulled him aside privately. She said that heavy thud sound had woken her up in the middle of the night, leaving her with an intense, uncomfortable feeling she couldn't explain. By the third night, O was absolutely terrified to close his eyes. They were scheduled to drive back to Singapore the next morning, but the exhaustion was weighing heavily on him. Then, right on cue, the sound echoed through the wall. This time, O didn't dare look out the door. He didn't want to see what was causing it. What was it? Nothing. He put his blanket completely over his head, squeezed his eyes shut, and prayed until the exhaustion finally took over. The next morning, O woke up early. He walked outside to the rental car to do like some final checks before heading for the long trip back home. So he go outside, he look at the tires, he check everything is in order, make sure everything is secured properly before heading for the long trip. While he was checking the vehicle, he realized the next door neighbor was standing outside. So O politely waved to the neighbor, just being kind and friendly, but the neighbor just tightly forced an uncomfortable smile and immediately turned away. So he just waved and then he turned away. The strange reaction made O suspicious, sensing something was off, and knowing he was leaving anyway, O purposely walked up to the neighbor's gate and then looked around, and then he decided to strike up a conversation. So the neighbor felt like he was quite guarded up at first, but as O pushed a little further, gently asking him about the history of the house they were renting, realizing O's family was just checking out that very morning, the neighbor finally relented and let out a dark truth. He explained that the house used to belong to a single elderly man. He once had a wife and children, but the kids grew up, moved away, and completely stopped visiting. Eventually, his wife passed away too, leaving him entirely isolated. The old man fell into a deep, dark depression and was rapidly running out of money because his children completely abandoned him. One day, completely broken, the old man took a thick white rope into the main living hall, climbed up onto a stool, tied the rope, and you guys probably know what happened next. So he kicked the stool away, and that was the last of it. Hearing those words, a violent shiver ran straight down O's spine, because the sudden realization hit him like a physical blow. So you are telling me that heavy start he kept hearing every night at 2 a.m, it wasn't something dropping, it was the sound of the wooden stool hitting the floorboards, and that awful animal growling sound, it wasn't a growl at all. It was the gargling sound of a man taking his final breath. Needless to say, it was time for us to leave. Thinking back at it, it was as if his spirit was stuck there, replaying the loop over and over again, every night at 2 a.m. We packed up the cars, we crossed the border back to Singapore, and never looked back again. So that was the last story of tonight. Well, I don't know how to explain. So what basically happened is that his children abandoned him, his wife abandoned him, and he's all alone without anyone, and he slowly fell into this depression because, let's face it guys, when we are old, we will never know who's going to be taking that care of us. So in this life, try to be humble, try to make good friends, and hopefully the karma comes back to you and you lead a peaceful life until the end. But for this case, hearing the gargling sound and him have to going through all this over and over and over again, replaying, honestly I think if O didn't open the door, then maybe it wouldn't have disturbed him. But he was smart the last night because he didn't open the door and nothing disturbed him, but he still heard those noises. I think I'm not going to mersing for a while. So what do you guys think of this final story? Because I was reading this story before because usually what I do is when you guys tell me a story, you send me a story, I will go through it and maybe edit it a little bit so that it's easier for me to tell the story, and I can add in some conversations or something so that I can deliver the message to everyone in a way that they can understand. So from now, what I learned is that I'm not going to mersing, and I'm not booking an homestay or Airbnb. So that wraps up tonight. I think we had 3 great stories, and thank you guys again if you are here until the end of the video. I appreciate it so very much that you stayed through the video. My voice is getting dry, so I need to get some water. I hope that you guys don't forget that you can open TikTok, go search a dark tale and send me your stories, DM me your stories, or maybe you want to have a conversation about the supernatural or a story you heard before from someone else. Just let me know so that I can gather stories and tell you guys every single week. And if I got enough stories, I can do 2 episodes. Or I've been still planning this for a while, but doing 1 episode where we tell ghost stories and the second episode where we tell history and maybe abandoned buildings, places, or just the normal history of things. And again, sorry for the previous AI pictures, because I got a comment where you all guys can see. If you haven't watched the previous video, don't forget to go watch the previous video. The views are super low. I don't know why. Maybe it was the wrong timing, but do go and watch that video and support me, because I think the AI version really brings the stories to life, and a small example of what probably he has seen. So again, to wrap everything up, thank you guys for watching this live, and do not forget, this is a dark tale where the stories get real dark real fast. I'll see you again next week.